I was going to say this week on TGC News, and that's totally not what I'm supposed to say at all. Welcome back to The Legal Brief, the show where we crush the various legal myths and misinformation surrounding various areas of the gun world. I'm your host, Adam Kraut, and today we're talking about a topic very near and dear to my heart, the arm brace, specifically Sig 1, made by my friends over at SB Tactical.
The scarging handle from Kinetic Development Group offers an ergonomic way to manipulate your FN SCAR rifle. Able to be used on both sides of the gun as well as flipped upside down for a different angle of approach, this textured contoured handle is brand new from KDG. To get 10% off your entire order on kineticdg.com, use the code TGC10.
The Sig Arm Brace hit the market with force back in 2013. AR pistols were rising in popularity and life generally was pretty good. The Sig Arm Brace was just introduced to the market by Alex Bosco, who designed it for his friend Rick Cicero, who was wounded overseas and lost both an arm and a leg. The loss of his arm made it difficult for Rick to shoot guns, particularly AR pistols, and that's where Alex got to thinking. The Sig Arm Brace was the result of hours of thought and testing. Designed to strap around the user's wrist in order to stabilize the gun, the brace allowed people like Rick to enjoy shooting guns once again. However, Rick and others who were in similar situations were not the only ones who turned out to benefit from the Sig Arm Brace. After people caught wind of it, it became a very popular accessory to install on an AR pistol. While the letter that accompanied the brace stated, "We find that the device is not designed or intended to fire a weapon from the shoulder," a slew of future determination letters would ultimately change that. In March of 2014, Sergeant Joe Bradley wrote the ATF to inquire about whether firing an AR pistol from his shoulder would change the classification of the firearm. The ATF replied that FTB, and that's Firearms Technology Branch, classifies weapons based on their design characteristics. While the usage and functionality of the weapon does influence the intended design, it's not the sole criterion for determining the classification of the weapon. Generally speaking, we being ATF, do not classify weapons based on how an individual uses a weapon. They went on to say that the Sig Arm Brace was not classified as a shoulder stock by ATF, and therefore the brace used in another manner does not classify design change. So in short, ATF was saying it's cool to shoulder the Sig Brace. November of 2014 is where ATF's position began to sort of shift on this. You guys remember that Black Ace's tactical firearm, magazine-fed shotgun, not a shotgun, pistol thingy? Well, in the determination letter that Black Ace's Tactical received from ATF as to the classification of that gun, it stated that should an individual utilize the SIG-TAC SB-15 pistol stabilizing brace on the submitted sample as a shoulder stock to fire the weapon from the shoulder, this firearm would then be reclassified as a short barrel shotgun, because the subject brace has then been made or remade, designed or redesigned from its originally intended purpose. Wait, what? That's a complete 180 from what they told Sergeant Bradley just a few months before. Then, in December of 2014, ATF issued a determination letter in relation to a new product on the market, the Shockwave Blade Stabilizer Brace. In this letter, ATF stated that attaching the stabilizer does not turn a pistol into a firearm, as defined by the NFA, but then says provided the blade AR pistol stabilizer is used as originally designed and not as a shoulder stock. I think something's starting to happen here at ATF. Then another letter surfaces in relation to the Thordsen Custom's buffer tube cover. That letter says FTISB, and that's Firearms Technology Industry Services Branch, and don't worry, it gets at least one more name change before we're done here, finds the submitted saddle devices are not designed to support the AR-type pistol in the shoulder of the shooter during firing, but rather to rest against their cheek. So far so good, right? Then ATF drops in this line: as long as the saddle device as evaluated and installed to an AR-type pistol is not designed, redesigned, or intended to contact the shoulder and is not used as a shoulder stock, its possession and use would then not be prohibited. I'm going to throw another letter in the description down below where someone else asked, will it be lawful without a Form 1 to build an AR pistol of any such caliber with a SIG brace, Noveske flash hider, Magpul angled foregrip, and a lower receiver marked as other, and ATF's response to that. Which brings us to SHOT Show 2015, the open letter that was heard around the world. FAT-D, and that's Firearms Ammunition Technology Division, see I told you got another name change here, begins the letter by explaining that stabilizing braces are described as a shooter's aid that is designed to improve the single-handed shooting performance of buffer tube equipped pistols. The letter continues that the items are intended to improve accuracy by using the operator's forearm to provide a stable platform for the AR-type pistol. Attachment of such a brace does not alter the classification of the firearm or subject the firearm to the NFA. However, according to ATF, that classification is predicated on whether a user is actually using the device as it was designed. Fat D, and we're going to have fun saying this, then notes, when the device is redesigned for use as a shoulder stock on a handgun with a rifled barrel under 16 inches in length, the firearm is properly classified as a firearm under the NFA. Fat D, everyone. ATF has received numerous inquiries regarding alternate uses for the device, including using it as a shoulder stock. Fat D then states that because the NFA defines both a rifle and shotgun to include any weapon designed or redesigned, made or remade, and intended to be fired from the shoulder, and a person who redesigns a stabilizing brace for use as a shoulder stock makes an NFA firearm when attaching it to a pistol with a rifled barrel under 16 inches in length or a handgun with a smoothbore under 18 inches in length. So that means at this point ATF is saying that if you shoulder an AR pistol with the stabilizing brace, you've made an SBR. The letter notes that the Gun Control Act does not define the term redesign, and therefore ATF applies common meaning. So they did what everybody does and they used a dictionary, you know, that thing that has words in it, descriptions, all that good stuff. Anyway, so the dictionary they chose was Webster's New College Dictionary, which defines the term redesign as to alter the appearance or function of. Okay, enough with the letters. Let's see what happened over at ATF in order to come up with this line of thinking here. Back to the legal definitions in order for us to make sense of some things. These definitions are going to be found in both in the Gun Control Act as well as the National Firearms Act and their regulations. As always, and don't worry guys, I'll always do it, but as always, the links to the source material is going to be down in the description box below. The Gun Control Act defines the term rifle in 18 U.S.C. 921A7. The term rifle means a weapon designed or redesigned, made or remade, and intended to be fired from the shoulder, and designed or redesigned, made or remade to use the energy of an explosive to fire only a single projectile through a rifled bore for each single pull of the trigger. The definition found in the regulations at 27 CFR 478.11 almost mirrors that definition in the law. The differences are inconsequential for the discussion. The NFA defines the term rifle in 26 U.S.C. 5845 subsection C. A weapon designed or redesigned, made or remade, and intended to be fired from the shoulder, and designed or redesigned, and made or remade to use the energy of the explosive in a fixed cartridge to fire only a single projectile through a rifled bore with each single pull of the trigger, and shall include any such weapon which may be readily restored to fire a fixed cartridge. John's sitting right off camera and I can see the look he's giving me. It looks like his head hurts, and so don't worry, you at least have somebody who relates to you as well as me for that matter. The definitions in the regulations found at 27 CFR 479.11 mirrors that definition exactly. So we see that both under the Gun Control Act and the National Firearms Act, in order for something to be a rifle, it has to A, be designed or redesigned, B, made or remade, and C, intended to be fired from the shoulder, along with some of that other stuff. This is where I think ATF gets things wrong with the SIG brace. However, we'll talk about that more in a minute. We got a few more boring definitions to get through. I know, I'm sorry. The NFA defines the term firearm in section 5845 subsection A as, among other things, a rifle having a barrel or barrels of less than 16 inches in length, and a weapon made from a rifle if such weapon as modified has an overall length of less than 26 inches or a barrel or barrels less than 16 inches in length. The definition in the regulations again mirror the one found in the law, and those also are found at 27 CFR 479.11. Let's not forget the term make. Yeah, remember make means make? Well, here we go again. The term make and the various derivatives of such terms, so make, making, makes, maker, blah, 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 shall include manufacturing, other than one qualified to engage in the business, putting together, altering any such combination of these, or otherwise producing a firearm. So what's the big deal here? Well, to start, it's my opinion that the way the law is written, if you built an AR pistol with a brace and you intended to fire it from the shoulder the entire time, you've definitely manufactured a short barrel rifle, and that's subject to the laws and regulations of the National Firearms Act. Sorry, I don't care if you call it an AR pistol. If you intended to fire it from the shoulder, you made a rifle. If it had a barrel length of less than 16 inches, bam, SBR, NFA applies, we're done here. However, this is where I think ATF gets it wrong. The way the law is written, and again, this is just my opinion, that if you were to buy an already assembled pistol with a brace installed on it, or you were to be handed one at the range, and you weren't to shoulder it, you did not commit a violation of the law. At what point did you make or remake, design or redesign anything? I don't believe you would have, provided you didn't modify the brace or firearm in any way. That said, ATF clearly disagrees with my sentiment. Further, I don't see how the common definition of redesign would apply when you haven't done anything to modify the product. Simply misusing something isn't commonly understood to be redesigning anything. For instance, if I were to take a flat-headed screwdriver and use it to pry something open, did I just redesign the screwdriver? I'd think not, but what do I know? I'm just some lawyer. So what's the bottom line here? Can you shoulder a pistol with the SIG brace attached? Well, I'm not going to tell you that you can, but the law seems to support an argument that unless you built the firearm with the intent to shoulder it or modified an already existing firearm with the intent to do that, ATF's position is rather contrived. However, if you built an AR pistol, or any other pistol for that matter, with a brace and you intended to shoulder it, it seems rather clear you've created a firearm subject to the regulations of the National Firearms Act. The crux, I think, is the intent portion of the definition. But a court may or may not agree with me, and that's why we have lawyers who argue both sides. Hopefully that clears up some of the confusion about the brace for you guys. Do me a favor, if you guys like this episode, share it around on social media, make sure you hit that like button, and you know what to do if you have a question. Let me know down in the comments below. Make sure to like the Gun Collective on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Full30, Snapchat, and wherever else you can catch us on social media. And as always, thanks for watching.
The shirts worn in today's episode of The Legal Brief have been provided by Patriot Patch. Click the link in the description to learn more.